Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. So lately, we've been doing this series on this channel about how having experienced narcissistic abuse affects how you how you come into or show up or be in other relationships in the future. Okay, so it might be that you're going through narcissistic abuse in one relationship and then how you show up in another. But we're going to focus in this particular video on how has narcissistic abuse affected how you show up as a partner in a healthy relationship. And I know for a lot of you, some of a big healthy relationship, that even feels out of reach, but it's not. You'll get there. One of the most painful aspects of narcissistic abuse is that it just keeps sending reverberations through your life. It's not as simple as go no contact and then all the effects of the narcissistic abuse are wiped out, or break up with someone, or end a relationship and you're going to be good again, or a narcissistic person in your life actually dies and then you won't be affected by them anymore. It's simply not, that's not how it works. These scars run deep. The harms of narcissistic relationships are not just about what happens while you're in the relationship and having contact with them. That's actually, honestly, just the top of the iceberg. The real harms are everything else that happens to you. How you experience these massive shifts and harms to your sense of self and your identity, your authenticity, your worth as a person, and how these impact your mental health. And those effects can last years, decades, or lifetimes, right? Now, we know that healing means that you slowly start taking back your life, inside and out. And a crucial aspect of that is building up healthy relationships, friendship networks, other support networks, and in some cases, meeting someone new and entering into a new romantic or intimate relationship. Or you may have grown up in a narcissistic family system and want to someday have a healthy, intimate relationship. In this video, we're going to take on how having been through past narcissistic relationships and abuse, whether that's in a family of origin or in prior adult narcissistic relationships, can affect how you show up in healthy, intimate relationships. Now, just as a brief refresher, because I think we always need this refresher, I know for a lot of people, all people, regardless of narcissistic abuse, but especially for people who have been through at least one and if more than one narcissistic relationship, is exactly what does a healthy adult relationship look like? Try on respect, compassion, kindness, empathy, a willingness to hear your point of view even if it's different from theirs, patience, seeing the best in you, supporting you as you grow. And I know it sounds foreign for a lot of us who have been through all of this, but healthy relationships are a thing, and it's real. So you do find someone, let's say you do find someone who has some of these fundamentals. The question then becomes, how can your history of narcissistic abuse affect how you come into or are in a healthy relationship? Number one, you may believe you have to give in on everything your partner wants, because that's how it's always been in other relationships you've had, right? So when they suggest something you don't want to do, you may just believe that the only path forward is to just agree and give in. And the danger of this, especially if you've been doing this since the beginning of the relationship, is that they may not know this. You're agreeing, so they think that you want to do this thing, and over time, you may build up a resentment. But in a healthy relationship, odds are that you could have said, man, that's not my thing. And then the two of you would have found some sort of healthy compromise. But your template, if you've gone through narcissistic abuse, is that giving in is the only way to get along. And this may also leave your partner wondering if you even have any opinions or preferences about anything because you've never learned to voice them. Number two, you may not express your needs, your wants, or your hopes, and this is a big one. And perhaps is the most common thing that happens to folks when they enter a new relationship, because the template you received is that expressing your needs or your wants or your hopes is a risk. And it puts you in harm's way to be invalidated or be gaslighted or to be called selfish. And in a new relationship, if you don't do that, sadly, it sets a precedent as though you don't have needs, which isn't true of anyone. We all do. And again, it may also leave a new partner wondering and even often feeling that they have to keep checking in on what you need. Are you sure? Like, you haven't been telling me what you want, what you need. And over time, that does get tiring for the other person. You know, because you've been there. The third is that you may feel like you need a lot of reassurance in a new relationship. After going through a narcissistic relationship, all of us had reality dismantled. So in a way, we are walking through a world without signposts and guardrails. And in those spaces, it makes sense that you need and want reassurance. Is that okay? Are you okay with that? Are you sure? Can I do more? Let me know if this is okay. This is a very common response in survivors of narcissistic relationships who are still living in their fear brain of the narcissistic relationship, where when you didn't get things right, all hell would break loose. So seeking out that reassurance is in essence seeking out safety. But once again, it leaves you on your back foot in a new relationship and can also create a sort of imbalanced and asymmetric dynamic with them feeling that they frequently need to reassure you. Again, that can get tiring for the other person, no matter how healthy and compassionate they are. Number 4, you don't know what's normal. So you often feel like you are in a state of questioning and confusion. It sucks because you lived in confusion hell for years in a narcissistic relationship. But what a narcissistic relationship steals is what is normal. Some narcissistic relationships are suffocating and controlling, so constant contact and feeling like you can't make a move without checking in with someone become normalized. Some are intermittent, so you don't know when there would be contact. And narcissistic relationships also deplete your intuition and instincts, so you no longer have an internal sense of what is right. And as we already said, narcissistic relationships often leave you sort of needing reassurance. So you may not even be sure of what is right, when to reach in, when to step back, when to communicate. A narcissistic relationship is like a magnet that messes up a compass. And this confusion can often leave you a little bit more anxious in a new relationship, sort of feeling frozen and unsure of what to do. Number 5, you may over-apologize in a new relationship. Things like, I'm so sorry, here, no, let me do that, I'm so sorry, no, I apologize, I didn't mean to do that, I didn't mean to say that, I didn't mean to be that. You know the apology drill. A very frequent fallout of people who've been through, for people who've been through narcissistic relationships is to apologize just to appease the narcissistic person, to avoid the worst of their wrath, or because they literally told you that everything you have done is wrong, and you believed it. But apologizing when you do nothing wrong isn't good for you, nor is it good for a new relationship. This is something you will need to work on internally in yourself and in therapy, but to catch yourself, because in a healthy relationship, you may get caught up in a loop of you apologizing and the other person wondering what you are apologizing for. And again, back to them having to frequently reassure you, which, no matter how healthy they are, will get exhausting. Number 6, you may become very suspicious and untrusting in a new relationship, in a healthy relationship. This is, again, a very big one, and sadly, it could potentially ruin a perfectly good, healthy new relationship. And it's for this reason, amongst others, that I often counsel people to give it a solid year before getting too intensely into a new relationship. Narcissistic relationships demolish a sense of trust in you, even if they don't betray you through infidelity or you didn't experience massive breaches of trust in a family of origin. Any narcissistic relationship, no matter what's happening, at some level is just one big betrayal all the time. So trust, not only in other people, but in yourself, can really just slip away. This can mean that you are often uncomfortable in a new relationship in which your new partner is not betraying you, but the map you have from past relationships. A person working late or having a night out with their friends can feel triggering and bring up bad old feelings because they were associated with bad things, despite the new person doing nothing wrong while they do these things. While a healthy partner will, for a time, be able to show grace in the face of this, that can't happen forever. This can take time, and it may mean couples therapy, which is a good thing when you have a healthy partner. And it definitely means your own work. It's terrible because when your trust is betrayed, you are more suspicious going forward. And it may take a long time for trust to fully solidify in a new relationship. But for a new partner who's not doing anything wrong to face accusations of betrayal and infidelity can really take a toll in a healthy relationship. You can ask for patience for some time, but that probably will wear thin at some point. Number 7, you may quickly fall into the here we go again thinking and then pull back. And pull back out of the relationship. You may think like, oh, they didn't want to do something I want. Here we go again. Or they were talking too long to that attractive person at the party. Here we go again. Or they got a text on their phone in the middle of the night. Here we go again. I know the word triggered gets overused these days. I'm trying to think of another, maybe activated. That when these things that resemble painful betrayals from the past show up in a new relationship that's healthy, the painful memory goes right back to that other time, and it becomes a very quick, here we go again. And you may quickly withdraw, pull back, become quiet, and that becomes problematic in a new and healthy relationship. It's normal to have that here we go again thought and feeling, but if that leads you to pulling back or going quiet over time in a new relationship, that's often going to leave a new partner wondering what's going on, and again, it can wear thin. Number 8, you're always waiting for the other shoe to fall. When there's a good day, you don't lean into it. Why would you? Back in the day, a good day meant a bad one was around the corner. So you aren't present. There's a holding back, a fear, a tension, and in fact, in a healthy relationship, good days, or at least normal days, can be back to back for a long time. But waiting for the other shoe to drop can also mean sometimes self-sabotage, almost like trying to push a fast forward button on something that feels inevitable. Number 9, you may never allow yourself to be vulnerable in a new relationship. Again, after a narcissistic relationship, this absolutely makes sense. Being vulnerable was far too dangerous and resulted in too much pain. However, in the absence of vulnerability, there really cannot be intimacy and closeness. And in a new, healthy relationship, if your new partner is rolling up and is being vulnerable and open, and you aren't, again, it creates this sort of asymmetric imbalance and can stymie any possibility of growth and ongoing development of closeness if that happens for too long. A new partner may wonder what it is, and it may result in something healthy feeling more disconnected. Again, this is where work is needed, and communication actually is something that works in a healthy relationship and won't get you anywhere in a narcissistic one. That's not to say you have to become vulnerable overnight. That obviously will simply feel too unsafe. But to communicate about the why and to make small steps toward it may be a show of faith in the new relationship. The effort will be duly noted, and each time you try some vulnerability and you have the experience that it's not ashamed or abused or humiliated, you may give yourself permission to push ahead a little more. Number 10, and this last one is a big one too. You may feel bored or like this new relationship is not electric enough. And that, folks, is the trauma bond talking. That sense that conflict and hot and cold relationships and inconsistency being conflated with love and connection, that's often an old wound that can come from childhood trauma-bonded relationships or other adult ones. And again, this is why working on trauma-bonded patterns before dating and getting into relationships is so important. A world where someone isn't playing games, responds to messages in a timely way, checks in with you, makes sure that you're safe, doesn't yell, you don't have painful arguments that need to be fixed, where it is predictable, it is so, so good for you. But that lack of volatility and that lack of unpredictability is also unfamiliar, and it may read as, well, maybe this isn't sort of a passionate relationship, or maybe we're just friends, and all that nonsense that we're supposed to feel this sort of sizzle and excitement inside of us when we're in love. That sizzle is often trauma-bondy stuff. That sizzle that might come from being off balance, of having something to do all the time to fix and figure things out and analyze. In some ways, a narcissistic relationship is like living in an old house where things always need to be fixed. It's not always good for you. So if this is what happens, what can you do if you do meet and get into a relationship, a new relationship with someone healthy, after having experienced narcissistic relationships? It helps if you give yourself time out of a relationship, time that you're experiencing autonomy, individuation, knowing and learning who you are or what you're about, doing the work of understanding your trauma-bonded systems and how you are triggered and activated and how you hold that in your body. Learning what healthy relationships are about, and that in fact, a healthy relationship is very error tolerant. One mistake won't sink the ship. Then you have to do the thing that never ever works in a narcissistic relationship, but that is gold in a healthy relationship, which is to communicate clearly and often. Listen, you don't have to give someone a play-by-play on your past relationship history or family history, but as you get acquainted with a new partner, you might need to give them a roadmap to you, that sometimes it will take a minute for you, and that you were hurt, and that you know that this new person is different from the person from your past, but that sometimes the past and present get blended up. If this new person is indeed healthy and empathic, then they will hear that and have that patience. Recognize that strange things will make you feel uncomfortable, like being taken care of, or having your needs heard, or a person making a compromise for you, and that you are always waiting for the other shoe to drop. A new healthy relationship is a series of small experiments to voice a need and see what happens, to be vulnerable and see what happens, to communicate and see what happens. And each time it goes okay, you feel a little safer and you may do it again. Listen, you survived a narcissistic relationship. You're tougher than you know. And a good person will be able to ride a lot of these waves with you, especially if you're clear about it. But you also have to remain aware of these patterns, because none of us can expect someone else to be eternally patient with patterns that they did not create. Communication, though, and giving another person a sense of what's happening for you, which involves being vulnerable, is a big part of this. My greatest wish for every survivor of narcissistic relationships is that they get a chance to be in a healthy one. And sadly, our past narcissistic relationships can undermine how we come into new ones. There's a lot of work we often have to do within ourselves so we can fully be present in a new healthy relationship. But being aware of how these patterns show up within ourselves when we get into a new relationship is part of making that happen. And just as a sideline, part of healing, here's a book on it. So I hope you check it out. It's available in February, but you can pre-order it now. Go ahead, check out the link, and give it a look. Thanks again.